Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory TV and the HerStory podcast. This is Gertrude Macha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman coming to us all the way from the UK. Welcome back to the tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
I'm 59 years old, and my name's Prosperity Ballentyn, and my story is about what I've always been talking about, is what I went through as a child, where I was sexually abused. And so my story is that what I want to be, what I've been trying to do is to reach out to others who have been sexually abused, and not just anybody who's just been sexually abused, but anyone who's been abused physically, mentally, or anything at all to do with abuse. Because I know when it comes to abuse, there's many things involved in being abused. And so I've went on Facebook a few times, but I've not been on Facebook for, I don't know, a few months. But I'm going to start going back on Facebook again. So when I go on Facebook, it was every Saturday I was going on, and I was just sharing with people about the different things that you go through when you get sexually abused, about you hold unforgiveness, that you have bitterness, you have anger, you have so many things. There's so many things involved. You can be suicidal. Some people, they try and take their lives, so they're suicidal, but they actually try and take their lives. And some people, they may die, I don't know, but I know in my case, I didn't die. That's some of the things that I talk about. And also talk about my faith as well. I'm a born-again Christian, so I talk about my faith as well. And so what my talks are usually is based on my faith, because I give scriptures while I'm speaking. I usually say some scriptures to try and help to encourage anyone who's going through similar problems.
So I know that sexual abuse is a huge problem all over the world. This is a story that we hear time and time and time again. Women who went through traumatic experiences in their childhood, and they've had to live with those traumatic experiences all of their lives. How did it impact you?
How do you mean? How did that impact me?
How did
I'm not quite
you?
It affected me greatly as I was growing up. I had so much anger, so much bitterness, so much hatred. I tried to kill myself, and I just got into trouble because I used to go around picking on other people. If they said anything to me, I would just want to beat them up because I had all this anger and that. And people they used to try and bully me. And I thought, I'm not going to allow it, because when you've been abused, you don't want anybody else to try and abuse you or bully you. So yeah.
And what are you doing now to help empower other women? I know that part of sharing your story is your mission to do that. Why do you think it's important that we talk about these issues?
Why? Because it's what I wanted to do. What I would like to see is people to speak up for themselves, and if anybody sees anybody who's getting abused or that, to also, I would like to see these people not to keep quiet any longer, but I would like to see them to speak. I would like them to start speaking out and telling people what's going on. And I've said before, it's like a taboo, where people they just don't want to talk about probably because they may feel ashamed or guilty, and because I know I used to feel that way before, but when I started talking about it, it helps. And when I became born again, that also helped me, because I used to hate, basically I used to hate myself as well. I used to think, why am I here? Why am I living just to go through this? It's like I live in hell. I used to think all sorts of things. And so that's why I had to decide. God started talking to me to reach out for other people who've been through similar situations.
Yeah, and I think it's so empowering when you hear another woman sharing her story. For most women, they feel like they're not alone. It didn't just happen to them. And you talked a little bit about hating yourself. Now, a lot of children, when they go through these traumatic experiences, they feel like it was their fault that this happened to them. The same thing happens to you. What could you say to another woman who's feeling that way right now, listening to you speak? What advice would you give her?
Advice would I give her? I would tell her it wasn't her fault, because I think that's what most people have been through. They blame themselves, that they think they have something to do with it. But when you're small, there's really not much that you can do. And yeah, so I would tell them not to blame themselves. I think that's the most important thing, not to hate themselves, not to blame themselves, and to start seeking to get help, get counselling. And yeah, to get counselling, I think would be important. Be able to speak to somebody they can trust, to let them know that they're not alone, that there's people out there who can help them. But they need to have that mindset where they're willing to reach out to somebody for somebody to be able to help them.
Yeah. Now, you and I have talked in the past, we've connected before. You know what my passion is, to bring these stories to light, to bring these stories to people from all over the world. Why have you decided to keep coming back to the HerStory platform to share your story? What is the impact that you got from the last event? What is driving you to keep on speaking?
What's driving me, it's hard to explain. It's something, it's within. I would say it's my calling. It's my calling to be able to reach out for people. It's just something that's in you. You can't help yourself. It's not, you can control it, but it's hard to explain, to be honest. But yeah, it's, because I want to see people healed, I want to see people delivered, I want to see it stopped. And what I would like to do is be able to get some kind of campaign going where it could get taken to governments, and so they can, I don't know, change the laws to where it can start to stop these things from happening. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see happen.
Wow. Well, it's absolutely amazing that we're connecting with you and you're sharing this. I think it's also important for the men who are listening to this interview to know the impact of sexual abuse on women, what it does for the rest of their lives. Tell me, how did it affect your life going forwards when this happened to you?
When I was smaller, I used to be quiet. I would keep myself to myself. A lot of people would say I was shy, but I would have my best friend, and the first best friend I had, she was best friend since we started primary until we went to high school. Then we separated because she went to a different high school from me, and you don't want to. I used to go long walks on my own as well, because I didn't want to be around people, and I wanted to be out of the house as much as possible. But like my father, he used to be in the Merchant Navy, so he would be on and at home maybe for about 3-4 weeks, and then he would be away to the Navy. So that was the time when I had peace. But when he was home, I would go outside as much as possible.
Yeah, so it completely changed your personality and your character. You became an introvert, not because you were quiet, but you were suppressing everything that you had gone through. Wow. So if you could, this is my last question for you. If you could have a conversation with that little girl, with that younger woman, and help her heal, what would you say to her?
What would I say? I would tell them that there's hope, not to give up, not to give in to all these things that's going on in their mind. And I would tell them I would say to them, things can be different, but you need to be willing. That's the thing. Before we can change things, we need to be willing. We need to see in our mind there's hope. There's something else besides being sexually abused, because it's all to do with our mind.
And if you can harness the power of your mind, you can change everything.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Prosperity. This has been wonderful to reconnect with you. It's a real honor that we're having you speak again at our next online summit in March. And I am hoping that this podcast interview will help amplify your voice and get your story out into the world as well. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story movement is about shining a light on women's stories, having our voices be heard, not just in the towns, the villages, the cities we live in, but globally as well. And that through the sharing of our stories, we create a safe space for the stories to breathe, for women to be heard. So thank you so much. It's a real honor to reconnect with you in this way. Thank you, everybody. Bye for now.